Okay, so I'll be talking on primary and secondary metabolites, the chemistry of life and survival. What are metabolites? Metabolites are the bioproducts produced by the microorganisms. So there are three categories we call enzyme catalyzed products, small molecules produced during the metabolism through enzyme mediated reactions, and diverse functions like serve a vital role in the fuel provision, structural support, cellular signaling defense mechanism, and organism interaction. Whereas universal presence like produced by the plant, microorganisms and animal. Now let's see what is primary and secondary metabolites means. The primary metabolites are essential for the growth of the development of microorganisms, right? Whereas the secondary metabolites are not essential for the basic survival. So the microorganisms which produce the primary metabolites are also important for the growth of the microorganisms. So if the primary metabolites are not produced, then the cell will not survive. But these are also beneficial for the consumers, are also beneficial for the mankind or human beings, right, as a host. It requires the basic cellular functions like cellular metabolism, whereas secondary metabolites, they're crucial for the ecological interactions. So because they help to, for example, some metabolites which produce against the resistance to the harsh conditions, for example, some stress protein, or for example, some conditions which you can tolerate the pH, or acid conditions, or salt conditions, right, or some kind of a temperature conditions, extremophiles. So they produce the metabolites which can have interaction with the ecological interactions where they live, where they sustain or they survive. Whereas the primary metabolites, they're critical for the reproductions and survival. If the primary metabolites are blocked synthesis, or they do not synthesize inside the cell will not survive. They cannot propagate, they cannot undergo the division or reproduction process. So all these requirements for the reproduction, for the reproducing the strains or survival, the primary metabolites are important, where the secondary metabolites are species specific defense, right. It has a species specific defense, means like they have a compounds which produced through certain species like E. coli species, Klebsiella pneumonia species. So they have some defense compound which are specifically for a particular species. So this is a few major differences between the primary and secondary metabolites. Are the, in other words, you can say how you can define the primary and secondary metabolites, and how you compare these primary and secondary metabolites which are produced by the microorganism. The metabolic pathways from the primary metabolites like central metabolism, glycolysis, TCA cycle, which are very essential, right. If there is a loss of enzyme or loss of uh, metabolic pathways in the central metabolism like glycolysis and TCA cycle, then you will stop the what you call synthesis of several enzyme, synthesis of several product which may use as a substrate for other reactions, and so you block the synthesis of the metabolic pathways, and by doing so cell will either kill or it will stop the growth. So primary metabolites means like carbohydrates, proteins and lipids again, and again these metabolites are important. If you reduce these metabolites synthesis, then it will impact the growth of the microorganisms. Whereas the secondary metabolites are not directly hitting the microorganism, but they are also required for their defense system or for the system where they can survive in a particular ecology. So they have interact with ecological situation or the where the microorganisms can grow, so they can provide the support. So these pathways are involved in central, primary and secondary metabolites pathways are involved in the bacteria and fungus and other microorganisms for their growth and sustainability for the life processes. Say in case of primary metabolite, the essential for life are carbohydrates, right, because carbohydrates are the energy storage and structural compound where they can provide the proper energy like glucose, starch and cellulose. So by digestion of these glucose as well as, or not digestion, but I think digestion of the polysaccharides or saccharides, starch and cellulose into the glucose and small molecule which provide the energy, because the glucose is directly used in the several reactions like Krebs cycles, like in uh, glycolysis and other. So they provide the energy in the form of ATPs, and these energies are utilized by the cell in different cellular processes, metabolic reactions. So if there is no carbohydrates, the energy process will be stopped. Now lipids, the cell membrane fermentation energy storage and signaling molecules are basically lipid molecules. So lipid is again essential molecules which are required for the various metabolic processes, cellular processes, where the bacteria and fungus can survive. They can have better signaling process, they can have better metabolic processes in the presence of lipid molecule as an essential component. Protein and amino acids are again the essential component. Certain essential amino acids are required. Proteins are important for the structural and the functional part of the cell. So if there is no protein, the cellular structure is lost, and it will also impact the whole life of the microorganisms. So enzymatic reactions catalyzed by the various enzymes uh, and some proteins which have a structural support and cellular machinery of these microorganisms. The nucleic acids, which is the without nucleic acids cells cannot survive, cannot reproduce, and cannot improve or increase their progenies and the life. So life is stopped without nucleic acid. The industrial importance of the primary metabolites. What are the industrial importance of primary metabolites? As far as the industrial importance is concerned, citric acid production, alcohol productions, amino acid manufacturing, right? Then we have a mass, in case of citric acid productions, like a mass industrial production using aspergillus, niger for food preservation and flavoring. Similarly, alcohol production is again industrial importance of the primary metabolites. Ethanol, lactic acid, they are widely produced for food industries, biofuels and industrial applications. Amino acid manufacturing is again L-glutamate and L-lysine used as a nutritional supplement for the food activity. So these metabolites are important from industrial perspective also, but generally all metabolites which are required for primary metabolites which are produced by the bacteria or fungus or other microorganisms are beneficial for its own survival and own productions and reproduction to improve the progeny and sustain their growth. Secondary metabolites like nature's chemicals arsenal, like for example production timing. We talk about the mainly produced during the stationary phase. A stationary phase is one when the log phase is lost, and when the log phase is saturated in the at the exhaustion of the nutrients. So at the exhaustion of a nutrients, cell will not move further. And biosynthetic origins like derived from the primary metabolites through specialized enzymatic pathways. Diverse classes like include the alkaloids, terpenoids, phenolics molecules, and antibiotics and mycotoxins and pigments. So all these diverse classes are used for these metabolites are used for the purpose of this. Now, the ecological and biological role of the secondary metabolites, the defense mechanism, the defense mechanism, like protection against the herbivores, pathogens, competing organisms, pollinators attraction, right? So sometimes these secondary metabolites they also provide the attract the various like insects, butterfly and various other insects which can have task of like taking pollination or improve the pollination or taking the pollen grains from one plant to another plant or from one herbs to another herbs. The chemical communication again, pheromones, signaling, signals molecules for inter-organism communications. How these organisms are communicating each other, right? Because they don't have any brain system. As we have a brain, we can think of something through our mind, through our brain, and we can call somebody, we can give signal somebody, we can give message to somebody. But these organisms give message through the signaling process. Now, secondary metabolites creates a stunning visual display in nature while surviving crucial ecological functions in plant, animals, interaction. So, see at this picture, see you have a insects, then you have environment, then you have a butterfly, then you have flowers and trees. So all these ecosystem, ecological balance and functions in plant and animal interaction is very important, and this is being carried out through the signaling process of these molecules which are produced as the secondary metabolites. So, the insects are coming to the flower for sucking the nectar or for taking the pollen grain from one plant to another plant through some signal process, through some fragrance, some metabolites produce, they give some fragrance, and this fragrance is something which attract the butterfly and insects. So, similarly, some metabolites are produced by the plants, they can also be taken by the insects, right, for some insects own benefit and for the benefit of the mankind, which, like, you know, honey is one thing which is produced by the plant, produced by the honeybee, and this honeybee is attracted by the plant, they get the nectar from the plant and then produce the honey inside. So, this is how the whole, because all metabolic processes, this is how biological industries are working in interaction with the animal and plant. Now, we have a biosynthetic pathways from primary to secondary pathways. So, we have a TCA cycle, right. So, these pathways are basically involved in both primary metabolism, primary metabolites which are produced, as well as the connect with the secondary metabolites. So, they are all metabolic processes are interconnected. TCA cycle, it is a central metabolic hub, right, provides the precursors for the various secondary metabolites. So, one primary metabolite reaction, for example, suppose this is, say I am just making arbitrary, A convert to B through some enzyme 1, B convert to C through enzyme 2. Now, this C is, this is the primary metabolites, but C is something which is utilized by the secondary metabolites for the secondary metabolites and give you the D as an enzyme 3. So, this D is the secondary metabolite. So, the primary metabolism and secondary metabolism, they are all interconnected in the cell, right. So, in physiology, it's very smart, cells are very smart, they can have like very good interaction between these, you know, all interconnected pathways, and these pathways are helpful for each other to produce the different products for the benefit of the organism as well as for the benefit of the mankind. Because in case of the secondary metabolites, which may be useful for the bacteria or which may be useful for all the microorganisms in order to develop a resistance against the particular ecology in which they are living. For example, the bacteria can develop some secondary metabolites which protect them from being harmed by the certain atmospheric condition, for example, temperature conditions, pH conditions, or for that matter the high salt salinity or pH conditions. Then these secondary metabolites are not directly helping the bacteria to survive, but they are helping to survive under certain condition. Alright. So, this is how the secondary metabolite works. For that, the primary metabolic reaction will help to develop a secondary metabolite. So, for example, TC cycle is one of the example. Then mevalonic acid pathway is MAP is called the produce the terpenoids, and these terpenoids and steroids through isoprenoid biosynthesis. So, isoprenoid biosynthesis is the primary metabolism which somehow through reactions produce the steroids and terpenoids, and these steroids and terpenoids are the secondary metabolites through these MAP pathways. Then we have a shikimate acid pathway, which is again very common primary pathway, which are essential for the survival of the cell, but they generate the aromatic amino acids, and these aromatic amino acids may lead to the phenolic molecule. Aromatic amino acid is important as a primary metabolites, primary molecules which produce several secondary metabolites, which can also help to produce the essential molecule like a protein for the life of the cells, for the structures and the function of a cell. On the same side, they are also producing the secondary metabolites, and these secondary metabolites are the phenolic molecule. These phenolic signals are directly involved to some functions, right, for the some mankind can be used, people can use these secondary metabolites after processing through industrial application. They can also be used by the plant through ecological interaction, different ecological interaction. Then we have a phenyl propanoid pathway. In phenyl propanoid pathways, we create the flavonoids, lignin and phenolic, defensive compounds. So, these are all compounds which are essential, not essential, but I think they are the defense system for the plant to protect, for them lignin, right. Flavonoids are basically also used by the humans, are also used for some medicines, for some pharma industries and some food product industries. So, this is how it can be used as the secondary metabolites. So, secondary metabolites biosynthesis is regulated by the environment environmental conditions, environmental cues, developmental stages and stress responses for the benefit of the microorganisms to survive and to sustain for a longer time. Now, at least we have 12,000 different alkaloids and 40,000 terpenoids have been identified through these pathways characterizations, which is a big number of molecules, secondary molecules, which are produced, which reflects the millions of years of evolution, adaptations and chemical innovations. So, this is outcome of several years and years and years. Now, secondary metabolites in medicine and industry is very common, and for example, if you talk about the antibiotics are very common, right? Antibiotics are very commonly used for in medical applications like penicillin, streptomycin, which revolutionized the healthcare system from 1928-30 to 1947 and till 1960, and even now. Antioxidants are flavonoids and phenolic molecules, which are secondary metabolites, right? They are used for the food additives, health supplements in various pharma industries and food industries. Several pharmaceutical alkaloids like morphines for the painkillers or as if pain relief, and quinines for the malaria treatment. These are all like bioproducts which are used in the pharma industries. Nature's pharmacological powerhouses, morphines, quinine and caffeine. They are very common product which are secondary metabolites, and these alkaloids are commonly used for various purposes for medical sciences, derived from the opium poppy, powerful analgesic for severe pain management like morphine. Then quinine is very commonly used for the malaria parasite in control, like cinchona bark is a source. They are isolating from the cinchona bark. Historically, it's very crucial for anti-malarial compounds are used as an anti-parasitic for the especially Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium species. Caffeine is stimulated alkaloids found in coffee, tea and coca plants. This is how the terpenoids, the large scale of natural products are produced. So, we have essential oils, rubber productions, then we have steroids, hormones, like we have these steroid hormones are terpene derived compounds crucial for physiological regulation. Rubber productions, we have polyisoprene productions, polyhydroxybutyrate productions, and which is biodegradable rubber molecule or rubber compounds. Then we have essential oils like monoterpenoids like limonene and methanol. They produce the fragrance. So, all these bioproducts are very, very essential for the use of the as industrial use or industrial application. Therefore, the production of these bio should be under controlled measures as we discussed earlier. Phenolic compounds like these are the natural antioxidants compounds, and these antioxidants compounds are good for as a scavenger for the various antioxidant reactions like ROS generation. Flavonoids, then tannin, then we have a lignin, then we have a resveratrol, and all these molecules are highly used in food and pharma industry. For example, flavonoids are anthomycins like anthocyanins is one, provide the red and purple pigments, colors in the fruits and flowers. So, they can be used for various dyes formations and various other fabric industries and some food industries also. Tannin is another one, is like this is a astringent compound that protect the plant from the herbivory or herbivores. Lignin is structural phenolic providing the strength to woody plant tissues. Then we have resveratrol found in the grapes, linked in a cardiovascular health benefits. So, all these compounds which are produced from the plant sources are very, very useful for the they are also providing the support and health to the plant as well, defense to the plant, as well as it can be utilized by the secondary metabolites for the man or animals. Then mycotoxins, toxin secondary metabolites. This is another class of secondary metabolites which are also used for some useful microorganisms for the defense system. For example, produced by the Aspergillus, aflatoxins produced by the Aspergillus. These are the flavus, highly carcinogenic compounds, right, contaminating the grain and nuts. So, this aflatoxin should not be produced, should be avoided to be taken. Like sometime in almond, they are very commonly found in aflatoxins or some groundnuts, they are found aflatoxin. Through fungal infection, they comes and they infect these plants, these grains, and they produce the aflatoxin. So then we have ochratoxin. Ochratoxin is nephrotoxins which affect on the kidney. So these toxin produced by the aspergillus and penicillium species, and they are affecting to the kidney. So kidney failures may take place by excess nephrotoxins. Then we have a fumonisin. Fumonisin is again a fusarium, a species of fungi, cause neural tubes defects and esophageal cancers are very common. So we should be careful about these metabolites. Now these toxic metabolites which are produced as a result of these reactions, secondary metabolic reactions will be produced. Therefore we should be very careful about consuming these product or consuming these foods or fruits. Be careful about these traces of these toxins. Now antibiotics, it's a life-saving secondary metabolites. Penicillin discovery, modern era, continuous discoveries of new antibiotics from microbial sources, but now they are stopped because now they are trying to derivatize the new antibiotics in the current scenario of the drug resistance. In 1943, streptomycin was a breakthrough by Salman Waxman from the isolated from the streptomycin from the soil bacteria, and that was a breakthrough for controlling the tuberculosis at the time. There's one case study, Salman Waxman and discovery of the antibiotic, the first to use the term antibiotics systematically and discover there were 20 antibiotics from soil microorganisms, right? He also coined the word antibiotics in 1942, and his work Streptomyces species led to the discovery of the streptomycin in the first effective treatment of a tuberculosis. So that was a breakthrough of the control of the tuberculosis at the time. Streptomyces continues to prolific, produce the novel secondary metabolites containing the 60% of known as antibiotics production. Now, secondary metabolites and plant stress responses, combined stress, amplified secondary metabolites, UV radiations trigger then we have carotenoid synthesis, then pest attack, drought and all. So this is all about the secondary metabolites and how we can produce the secondary metabolites from the primary metabolites, and how these primary metabolites are directly useful for the bacteria and for the microorganisms, where the secondary metabolites are also useful for the human beings or for the consumers or for the human and animals in various pharma industries, food industries, agriculture, and these products can be utilized by various uses. It also helps to interact with ecological conditions or ecological stress conditions to the microorganisms in order to sustain their growth. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll discuss another topic soon.